In this set of videos, we're going to be talking about inverse relations and functions, and that we're going to be starting to talk about this here in section 6.7. Mainly, we're going to be talking about inverse functions, but nevertheless, when you see the word inverse and when you think about inverse functions, I want you to think about the word reverse. So inverse is almost like reverse, and when you think about reversing things, here we see in this chart the relationship between f of x, or the relationship between x and y in f of x. And when x is 0, y is -1, x is 2, y is 0. You reverse the x and y when you're talking about the inverse. When you're looking at the inverse of f, you're just reversing the x and the y. So if you think about that, and think about that throughout this unit, then it makes things a lot easier. So if you just remember inverse, okay, I'm just going to reverse the x and the y. Well, there's notation associated with f of x, and I don't want you to think about this as f of x to the -1, because f of x to the -1 is 1 over f of x to the first power. F of x to the first power. But this is a notation where the f is, it looks like the -1 is the exponent of the f, but this is not an exponent. It really just means the inverse of f of x. That's just the notation that we use. And again, f inverse of x, or the inverse of f of x, does not mean 1 over f of x. So there's some steps here as we work through some of the examples. We're going to be finding the inverse function when we're given the function f of x, and these are the 3 steps. You interchange x and y, solve for y, and whatever you get for y is actually your f inverse of x. So let's go ahead and look at example number 1, in which we're actually going to take the the function 2x, f of x equals 2x, then we're going to find f inverse of x. So maybe I can, all right, so I can squeeze that in there. So I just want to keep the steps on this screen here. So if we think about actually step number 1, interchange x and y in this equation. The first thing, though, I actually like to do, like step 0 or step 1a, this is step 1b. Step 1a would be to substitute y for f of x. Every time you see an f of x, just put a y in there, and it makes things a little bit easier. Y equals 2x. All right. So then let's look at 1b, interchange x and y. All right, so we interchange x and y, meaning wherever you see a y, you put an x, and wherever you see an x, you put a y. Solve the resulting equation for y. Well, in order to solve this for y, we'd go ahead and divide both sides by 2, and when you divide both sides by 2, you get y equals x over 2. Well, that's exactly, this is write the result by replacing y with f inverse of x. And let's write the f inverse of x. We can say, therefore, f inverse of x is x over 2. So it really is that simple, meaning every single time you're given f of x and you want to find f inverse of x, you follow these steps. Really, it's 3 steps, as long as you understand that f of x can also be written as y, and it's just easier with the notation to put a y in there instead of writing it as f of x. So that's my 1a step. Well, let's try another one. Number 2, and if you felt like, I got that, then go ahead and pause the video and see if you can get f inverse of x. Well, the 1a, again, step 1a is just replace f of x with y. Step 1b, interchange x and y. And then step 2 then would be to go ahead and, where's my green? I'm looking for my green marker. Go ahead and solve for y. So we're going to add 5 to both sides, the same way you would solve for y in any algebraic equation. Adding 5 to both sides, those 5's cancel out, or -5 and the 5 cancel out, and we get 2y equals x plus 5. And then we see we have 2 times y, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we get y equals x plus 5 over 2. So we say, therefore, that y that we solve for, again, we switch the x and y, we solve for y, and that y that we get is actually our F inverse. F inverse of x is equal to x plus 5 over 2, and that's it. I'll pick up the examples in the next video.